What up, y'all? Welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be going over how to improve your aim. So there's basically four elements that make up having good aim in Valorant. Those four are obviously your sensitivity and how comfortable you are with it, so how accurate you are when you flick or track when you flick to a target or track a target, how consistent you are with that. The second is crosshair placement, so keeping your crosshair at headshot level and being mindful of where your opponent is and placing your crosshair in anticipation for that. The third is spray control, how well you control your spray, and basically having that be done subconsciously to where you don't even have to think about it. And the fourth is counter strafing and controlling your movement, because you can kind of aim with your movement because the movement speed is never going to change. So once you get good at all four of those elements, your aim should be good enough to get yourself to the higher ranks. And we're going to start off with finding the right sensitivity and what your sensitivity should be. Obviously, we are limited by the physical world as well, so if you don't have a ton of mouse pad space, you're not going to be able to have a super low sensitivity. But your sensitivity should be no higher than a 560 EDPI, which is 800, basically like 800 DPI and 0.7 in-game sensitivity. How you find your EDPI is just your mouse DPI divided by your, not divided by, multiplied by your in-game sensitivity. So my EDPI is 256. I have 800 DPI and 0.32 in-game, so 256 EDPI. And like I said, the highest it should be is 560. That's the highest sensitivity of a current Valorant Pro. So it's a little bit higher than that. So anything higher than that is just pretty much impossible to manage. It's not worth trying to learn to lower your sensitivity. The only requirements of the sensitivity, it's tailored to you, so it's whatever you prefer, but physically in the real world, from one side of your mouse pad to the other needs to be able to handle a 180-degree turn in game. So make sure that you're capable of doing that. Anything further than that's unnecessary. You're not going to be doing 360s. You just need to be able to do a 180-degree turn and flick on somebody that might be coming up behind you. My advice as far as finding the right sensitivity, you want to go to the range, kind of in it's the same spot that they have you adjust your sensitivity in the tutorial. You can flick to the little metal targets or to the flying drones and just kind of feel out what's comfortable. And if you're consistently over or undershooting a drone or a target, adjust your sensitivity accordingly, higher or lower. I do recommend learning to be an arm aimer, right? So, and this is objectively better because it gives you more overall control. When you're flicking from one spot to another, or making an adjustment, that arm is going to do most of the work, and then you can fine tune and be precise with your wrist. If you're doing all the work with your wrist, it's hard to make the perfectly accurate adjustment to get on target. So the lower sensitivities are almost always better, and you want to find that sweet spot. The other thing is, you can't be consistently changing your sensitivity in your crosshair. So the name of the game is consistency. You want to be as consistent as possible, and that's not going to work when you're constantly changing your sensitivity and you're constantly changing your crosshair. If you like the dots, go with the dot. If you like the the traditional plus shape, go with that. I personally like the open crosshairs, so the plus shape where you can see in the middle. That I think is better overall, but if you like the dots, go with the dots. But pick a crosshair and stick with it. The color doesn't matter as much, but the shape matters a ton. Try to stay with the same. Find one you like, stay with the same shape, and then the big one is the sensitivity. Pick your sensitivity, find what's comfortable, and stick to it. Practice it. That's the only way you're gonna get better. You can't keep changing your sensitivity. change your sensitivity this drastically, like let's say you're playing at 1600 DPI, 0.7 cents, that's obviously way too high. And so when you lower it this significantly to something similar to my sense, like 250 to 300 EDPI, that's going to be a major change, and your aim's probably going to be horrible at first. But if you put in a little bit of work, you'll get used to it faster than you think. But sometimes you have to get worse before you get better. So, um, yes, just worse. Take the loss. It's gonna hurt now, but it'll help a lot in the long run. Try to switch to arm aiming if you have the space, and then definitely, even if you're a wrist aimer, no higher than 560 effective DPI, EDPI. Okay, so beyond that, crosshair placement. Crosshair placement is it's just about being mindful of your crosshair and positioning it to get that headshot. Obviously, headshots are extremely important in Valorant because they're always a 1 or a 2 hit kill with the Vandal or the Phantom. So you always want to have your crosshair prepared to hit your opponent in the head. So you're not aiming at a wall, right? If you're holding an angle in case you get pushed, or if you are aiming at a wall, it's because you're about to peek and strafe into somebody to kill them. And it's about being mindful about where they are. So if you think somebody is heaven on A side on bind, you're going to position your crosshair at the right height so that when you strafe into them, your crosshair is already placed on their head and you don't even have to aim. That's the goal. We want to give ourselves as little room for error as possible. Or how would you say it? Yes, like you don't want to allow yourself to mess up. So you want to have the game do the work for you. Already have your crosshair position, so you don't have to flick diagonally or up and down, left to right as much. Your crosshairs are already on the head when you're strafing and peeking. You're hitting them in the head, so you're being mindful of where your crosshair is when you peek. Anticipate where your target's going to be. Place your crosshair at headshot level ahead of time, and then peek. You don't want to be aiming at the ground and then try to adjust to hit them in the head. You're not that accurate. No one is. Do the work before you take the fight, so you don't even have to think about it. Third is spray control. So you can drill spray control. Really, you only have to learn how to spray for the first 9 bullets. And when you practice your spray control, you want to practice with the gun you plan on using / the gun you prefer between the Phantom and the Vandal. Those are the ones you need to work on the most. Spray control is for both guns down and to the left. The Vandal is just obviously more extreme. The Phantom is a little bit easier to control. The Phantom, you get 4 perfectly accurate shots before the spray starts to before the spray takes its like a jump, and you start to lose a little control. The Phantom is 3 shots. 3 shots go right where your crosshair is, and the fourth one will take a little jump, and then the spray will kind of start to get away from you a little bit. But yes, 9 shots is all you need to learn, because by the time you fired a third of your clip, 9 to 10 shots, either you or your opponent's already dead. Plus, the spray in Valorant is random, and you're not going to be able to fully control it anyway. So you really only need to practice that first 10 bullets. You can practice this by going into the range and setting the bot and send it out to 20 to 30 meters, and then just shoot those 4 shots. And those 4 shots are going to be headshots, and then you're going to want to start crouching, or for the Vandal 3, 4 shots for the Phantom, 3 shots for the Vandal, and then crouch down before and keep your spray going. You don't want to be insta crouching. This is a huge problem I see with lower level players, is they shoot 1 bullet and then instantly are crouching because they're worried about not being able to control their spray and they don't want to completely whiff. But this is a horrible habit, because like we just talked about, headshots are extremely important. Your gun isn't 100% accurate. There's a slight error, so you might be on target for the first one, but because of the game's margin for error, your bullet might barely miss. So you want to get those first 3 to 4 shots into their head before you even crouch to begin your spray control. And the reason for that is because you just did all this work with your crosshair placement to make sure it's at headshot level, and let's say that first, second, or third bullet might have hit, and because you insta crouched, now you hit them in the body, and maybe, and you did everything right, but they won the fight because their crosshair placement was bad, and you crouched down into their crosshair and didn't hit him in the head. So first 4 bullets, crouch down and left on with your mouse, down and left, and then finish it out to about 9 or 10 bullets. You don't have to practice any past that. There's no point. Nobody practices that. It's not worth your time. So that's spray control. And then 4th is counter strafing. So obviously you have to be standing still for you're going to be perfectly accurate in Valorant. So no, that doesn't mean just swing out and stand there for a full second looking like a doofus while you wait for your movement error to be gone. So you have to strafe. Counter strafing is the act of, if you're peeking to the right, you're hitting D, and then as soon as you're ready to fire, you tap A. So we're holding D and then tapping A. Or if we're swinging to the left, we're holding A and then tapping D. That completely stops your character's momentum, puts you in place, and then your first shot will be accurate. That's another reason I see a lot of people miss. They're just swinging and they start shooting while they're still moving, or maybe they let go of D, but their character's momentum carries them for an extra step, so the first shot or two is off because their character was moving. So they're like, wow, my crosshair was on his head. Yeah, it was, but you were moving, so your gun wasn't accurate. So counter strafing is very important. That's another thing you want to drill with muscle memory. Something easy to do that on is just if you pull up the practice bots in the range and just A and D your way, swing a little bit to the right and then tap A, swing a little bit to your left and then tap D, and just keep shooting the bots in the head. Make that a subconscious reaction and muscle memory to every time you peek. The other thing is, whenever you're peeking somebody and you have the intent of peeking somebody, you want to strafe sideways into the gunfight. You don't want to W key or W and D and W and A and walk in a diagonal pattern to peek. That's horrible, because that counter strafing that you put all that time into practicing doesn't happen. It doesn't work, because if you're moving forward and you tap A, you're just going to move your character a little bit to the side. Their forward momentum is still going. So when you're peeking, you have to be strafing side to side and not be going at a diagonal or forward motion for the counter strike to work and be effective, and for that first shot to go where you intended to go. So that's a very important element. Also, at long range fights, and this is why I recommend not ADSing, is you kind of want to do the counter strafing at range. You want to fire 2 to 3 shots and then move a little bit. So if assuming the fight is still going on, you want to be able to move. And ADSing slows you down, your character's movement down, and it's not worth the benefit at range as of right now, with the exception of maybe the Guardian, since the magnification is so significant. But regardless, you don't want to ADS, and when you're fighting at range, you want to just kind of move side to side and dodge their shots while simultaneously trying to get your crosshair on their head. So that's a tip at range. Never change. Movement speed in this game is consistent. So if you're swinging out and you just need like another half a pixel, you can kind of use your movement to help you aim instead of your arm or your wrist, because that's another element of aiming, because they're not always going to be able to track you perfectly either if they're holding an angle. So if you have to swing a little wider or you keep it close, it doesn't really matter if if you're trying to put your crosshair on their head, and the speed of the movement is easier to keep track of than how comfortable you are with moving your mouse to make the adjustment. You can use that to help you aim as well. Now, as far as actually improving your aim, these are the exercises that you're going to want to do. So you don't have to use aim labs. Some people think aim labs is useless. I personally do like to use it, and I use two exercises that I think have helped me significantly improve my aim. And I don't want you guys wasting your time in grid shot. That's the cool one, the flashy one, the popular one that everyone likes. I'm just going to walk you through my whole routine, and this is what I would recommend doing to improve your aim. So the first is strafe track. That's one of the tasks in aim labs, and that's just a ball that is at different ranges and different sizes that you have to keep your crosshair on for the duration while it moves from left to right. So that just helps you really get comfortable with tracking, reacting, and then it kind of helps you get comfortable with like controlling your crosshair. So that's what I start with, and for each exercise, you're only going to want to do each one for about 5 minutes after, because you're going to be doing multiple exercises. You don't want to burn out. Your mind only has so much focus available to it. You only have such a certain length of attention span. So I do 5 minutes per exercise of improving aim. So first you start with strafe track. The second exercise is six shot, and this is, in my opinion, the single most valuable thing you can do to improve your aim, because obviously it works on the flicking aspect a little bit, and you're still working on getting your making sure you're comfortable with that sensitivity. But the big thing is it works on having your brain recognize when your crosshair is actually on the target and and the timing of your click. Sometimes our crosshair brushes over the head, or like for example when somebody wide swings you around a corner and you can't keep track of it all the way, or you clicked too early or too late, and they kind of just ran between your bullets and killed you. The timing of the click is very important. That's why things like trigger bots are so valuable. Like if you just heard about one of the top ranked players in North America who just got caught trigger botting, and he would use the Guardian because the computer would just click for him once his crosshair was on somebody's head. So there's no room for error there. But that's a very underrated part of aiming, is the timing of the click, and after your brain recognizes that it's on target. So six shot is the second exercise, and then spend another 5 minutes on that. The third is to do 5 minutes of flicking in the range. Do the challenge in the range of flicking the bots. I would recommend starting with medium, and after you've gotten comfortable with medium, I would say let's say you're putting in the 5 minutes, which is about probably 5 or 6 repetitions on medium. Once you put that 5 minutes in, and that entire duration, you've gotten 25 or more kills for that challenge, you're going to want to move it to hard. But don't go to hard until you're consistently hitting 25 or more on the medium challenge. So go to hard after you hit 25 or more, and then you do that for 5 minutes. And then you spend 5 more minutes on spray control. And that's making sure your first 4 bullets hit the head, or 3 if it's the Vandal. It really should be the Phantom. We'll talk about that next video. But your first 4 bullets hit the head, and then you're crouching down after those first 4, pulling down and left, and making it so that all those bullets that are following up are either hitting high shoulder or head. Like I said, the spray in Valorant's kind of RNG, so they're not all gonna hit perfectly on the head every time. But you work on the spray control for 5 minutes. So that's a total of 20 minutes worth of aim exercises, and you need to keep repping this at least. I mean, realistically, we're hopping on our computer all the time, so if you really want to improve it, at least 3 times a week, so that you're constantly stimulating and exercising or working that muscle memory, and getting those down pat. So that's 20 minutes worth of practice to improve all the various aspects. And then after that, I like to do at least 2 death matches before I hop into a match. And the death matches are where we can focus on all these aspects, without us having to worry about the strategy of the game, the flow of the game, and you can focus on these. And that's going to be your crosshair placement, right? Making sure everything's at headshot level. A lot of you guys already have that muscle memory of insta crouching, so we can hop into a DM and be super cognizant of whether or not we're insta crouching. We're making sure we're getting, those first 4 shots off before we crouch. And another good tip is to, while you're DMing, just unbind crouch entirely if you can't help but insta crouch. So I like to do that. And then also, it's just a good overall warm up. You're in game using 100% accurate in game sensitivity. You're getting used to the sound, the movement, all of that, and practice counter strafing as well. It's really good to be able to focus on making sure you're counter strafing and that first shot's going right where you're aiming. So, and then the proper way to DM really to really help your aim improve. You don't want to just crank your headset to the max volume and listen for people to run by you. You don't want to camp in a corner, and you don't want to try to shift walk to catch people by surprise. Anybody can spray somebody down from behind while they're not shooting back at you. That's not what we want. So you want to sprint around, wide swing, maybe take a pixel peek angle, work on that counter strafing. You want to get in as many engagements as possible, so full sprint around the map with your gun out, take aim duels. You don't want to just because you won a deathmatch doesn't mean you're improving. You want to get in as many meaningful engagements as possible to improve all those aspects of your aim. That's going to wrap it up for this video. Next video, we're going to be going over the strengths of all the different guns and in what situations you want to buy them in, and how to use them to be most effective, because each gun is viable in this game, and if you use it correctly can outperform a rifle, maybe not in most situations but in some. So we're going to be going over how to do all that, and we're also going to go over Phantom versus Vandal and why the Phantom is better. So I'll see you in the next video.